Hello and welcome, Podsters. This is an Unorthodox podcast. Today is our 12th episode, and we're doing something a little different. So today I've got Matt Southam, Managing Director of MJS Media and podcast host of Balanced Ambition, coming in, and he's interviewing me. Yes. So you're going to learn more about me, but what a fantastic guest we've got here today. Outside the business and outside of the family. Our first outside the family guest. Woo!
Steve, thanks for joining me to chat today. We're going to talk obviously about you and your podcast and why you're named the Unorthodox CEO. But,
Yes.
The business Sussex Beds was quite nice. It's a real family business. It's not just, obviously, we're talking about, your parents started it and down to you, but you've got lots of family members involved as well. And you do lean into that family side. But take me back for some early context, because within family businesses, and certainly growing up within that sort of entrepreneurial home and business home, how was that?
We were brought up in furniture. So if I think back to my early years, so I've spoken about Dad quite a lot, and we lived above a general furnishers. So Mum and Dad bought a general furnishers called Miles House Furnishers, which was in Bohemia Road in St Leonard's, and we lived above. In a flat above, well, sort of flat townhouse above, and then we had the furniture shop downstairs. So we were always connected with the business. And Mum and Dad would be working downstairs, and us three would be upstairs amusing ourselves. Furniture was really, and I guess I was always fascinated. It wasn't something that I wasn't aware of. I can remember just going downstairs and just sitting listening to Mum and Dad when they're doing their sales pitches and talking to people. And I loved it. And I can remember at primary school even doing projects on furniture, and I'd make these little magazines and cut up brochures. So I was always fascinated by it and was surrounded by it. And obviously it went on from there into the bedside, and I've gone through how that happened. They went away to an exhibition. Mum and Dad went to an exhibition, and there was this new thing, because everything was general furnishers before this. So this was 1980, 81. And this new concept of a bed-only shop. And it doesn't sound that weird today, but back then, that was quite revolutionary. Anyway, Mum come back, and within 3 months, found a shop and opened a bed-only shop, which just took off. I was speaking to Dad in one of our podcasts earlier, and we were saying about, do you remember that first shop? And I do, because they were busy buzzing around downstairs, and there was me, Matt and Sue, and there was 3 floors in Queen's Road, and we were piles of mattresses jumping off one pile onto another pile. I guess it was always in the blood. The only other thing I ever wanted to do, and I don't think it's ever been asked me, has it? What would I do if I wasn't doing this? And it would probably be a red coat at Butlins. That always fascinated me. But other than that, it was always beds and furniture. I never really thought of anything else. I just went through school, quite adamant I was going to leave, do my exams, leave, and join the family business.
And you did, didn't you? So late 80s, you joined the business.
Yeah, so I joined full-time. So I left school in 89, and within days I'm then working full-time within the family business. I had been doing Saturdays, so Saturday work on the shop floor selling from 1987, I think. But that's what I've done ever since, which is way too long.
And when was it you took over as CEO? When was it?
So I took over in 2014. So the business had gone through quite a rocky period between, I'm going to say 2007 through to 2012 when it come to a head. And really we didn't change that much between 2012 and 14. And it come to a real head and restructured the business in 2014. And I took over as CEO. My father still in the business, just stepped sideways. And that was 2014. And one of the reasons he stepped sideways, in fact, we were talking as you come in about Action Coach.
Yep.
And that was the moment where we started working with a action coach. And my father, he'd been in business all his life, said, look, I'm not going to take this person or what they say, I'm going to challenge it. If we really want to do this, it's probably best that you do it. And I done it alongside my brother to begin with. And we were meeting every week with a business coach. And that was probably the moment that the business changed and really put it on this path to the success that we've seen over recent years.
Yeah, because you've got 14 stores now, not just in Sussex. You've moved into Kent and so that, I mean, that's 10, just over 10 years. That's,
yeah. So we start. When did 14? There was probably I don't know exact numbers, but it was probably around seven stores at that point. And then we've taken it on to the 14 that you see today. But so it was from that point. And I guess what changed was structure, control. Whereas prior to that, my father headed the business. I was alongside him, but really it was his business, and it was all through dad, and it got to a point where it's just too big for one person, and that's where you need structure, you need KPIs, you need controls to be able to then grow further from there.
And how did some of those maybe early influences from your dad, affect how you are a CEO? And you say unorthodox CEO, and I joked earlier, you wear Vans, as one bit, but it's more than that. It's actually your entire style.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm not authoritarian. I don't struggle with, in fact, I thrive on allowing my team to make their own mark. And it's quite a difficult thing, especially I think with founders where you've done it your way. And then other people come in and it's like, well, you're not doing it how I would do it. Now, I think, no, it's not, but it doesn't mean it's wrong. And you've got to let people find their own, do it in their own ways. And sometimes they'll make mistakes, and you've got to accept that for them to make mistakes, learn from the mistakes and grow from that. But if you don't take that jump, then you're just going to stagnate, because you need other people to reach and grow. And so I think that's really important to allow autonomy. And I day to day, I don't. We have a leadership team, and it is all family, and so that's fairly unorthodox as it is. But they run their own teams. Yes, of course, we meet every week. They tell me what's going on, and I'll challenge. But ultimately, I will challenge more in a coaching role rather than you will do it this way. And now, if they were in here, they might say otherwise. But that's how I feel I am anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess that's unorthodox. Unorthodox in that how many family, and the leadership team is fully family. We have family on the front line of the business in the stores. And even, the way our office here, the back office team, it is a family feeling business. In Victoria, who does podcasts with me, we treat everybody as a member of the family. Now that doesn't mean it's all plain sailing and happy. And
I was going to say, because sometimes the biggest clashes are within families.
Yes.
How do you split that? Yeah.
Now, generally, I think we separate business from domestic fairly well. This is and I'm a firm believer in you need healthy conflict within a business.
Yeah.
There's no point having lots of people that just go yes, 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 yes. And if you look at the departments around our business, they conflict, their interests, their purposes clash, and so you need that healthy debate to come to a sensible compromise in the middle. So I think it's just managing that, and I've spoken quite a lot about, I performance review my wife, who's our marketing director, and that's an interesting one. But do you know, it sticks to the agenda. We're there to, a performance review's there really to help people grow, to identify areas where, you can develop and get better. And I think that's installed within our business. You are allowed to fail. And, I think still, I mean, even Victoria, there's that struggle to sometimes do something new. What if it fails? Yeah. If it fails, you stop it. But what if it doesn't? And then that's another, a good piece of, that's how we grow and get better.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I sort of talk, funnily enough, at the podcast show, and she works for Stephen Bartlett for Flight Story, and her actual job title is Head of Failure and Experimentation.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And she said, obviously, I'm not trying to fail, but you have to try things to see what works.
Yes.
And actually, a failure isn't always a negative. It can be like, okay, so that hasn't worked, so let's try this one. And it moves you closer to actually trying something. And I think a lot of people are afraid of failure because, certainly, in childhood, it's like, you don't get things wrong, and, always try and do your best and pass the test and so on. But you have to know that it isn't always like that.
Oh, exactly. If you think schooling, you ask a question and you've got to put your hand up if you know the answer.
Yeah.
When really, you should be putting your hand up if you don't know the answer, because you want to learn. It's no good. Is that what it was? But that's the wrong way round, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with not knowing. I think that's another thing, isn't it? Which is unorthodox. Business owners, you're supposed to know so much stuff, and it's impossible. I don't know the ins and outs of finance. I don't know the ins and outs of. I have brief knowledge on all of it, enough to be able to challenge. But when it comes to detailed knowledge, and the accountant starts speaking accountant language, I'll go. What do you mean? I don't understand that. Or explain. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it should be encouraged. But again at school, I don't want to put my hand up. What if I get it wrong?
Yeah.
And that sort of is installed, isn't it? But it's trying to break that down. And I guess that's unorthodox.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that role of CEO, actually, the way you do it is, some CEOs will very much be, they're the boss, they're in charge, they tell everyone else how to do it. Actually, from what you're saying, you're there to nurture, support, and encourage other people to grow and do their best work. Because actually, in those individual areas, they know more than you, and you want them to know more than you, and you want them to be better at it, because they're doing that part full time.
Definitely.
Whereas you've got that oversight. So your role is to encourage that and support that.
I think there's a fear among, leaders, isn't there, that I don't want to employ this person because they're better than me. But actually, if I look at, and I've done in the 36 years of doing this, I've done virtually all the different roles in one way or another. I have done a bit of finance. I wasn't very good at that. I have done the marketing. I have done the sales. I have done, delivering even, and quite frequently. But what I would say is every member of my leadership team does a far better job at each of those individually than I ever did. And that, I guess that's because when I was doing it, I was trying to do it all.
Yeah.
Whereas as you get bigger and you can afford to then focus and be the best you can at marketing. And whereas I could only dip into sales, my son does sales. He does an outstanding job, far better than I ever was. and the head on him for a 28-year-old, 28, 29, 29.
Very nice.
Time to get this wrong. We'll edit that. But yeah, outstanding for such a young man, very emotionally intelligent, which is something you grow into as well. I think emotional intelligence, you're not supposed to get to your 40. I think there's some people in politics that never get there. But
some people get older, they don't grow up.
Yeah. So not saying that everyone gets it, but I mean, it's incredible. My sister, products, so clear on what she wants to achieve. My wife, who's got a background in graphic design, when I was doing marketing, it would just be, oh, look, I can do it, so I will. So it was just a mess. But, I think it's allowing people to be better than you as well. And just having enough to be able to challenge.
Yeah, I love that you do want people who are better than you, because actually, almost look at it like a football manager. You might have some of the knowledge and things like that, but you're not going to be the best goalkeeper. As the manager, you wouldn't go on and try and play all the positions.
No.
You've got a team, and you just help bring it together so that everyone can perform.
And that's the role of a CEO, isn't it? Really, is to bring the team together and get them on a path that we're all clear on, and a company culture and values that brings along everyone together, so you're not dragging them.
Yeah. How do you see culture then? Because you mentioned it there. Do you actively work on that family type feel of the culture, or
yes,
you live it and breathe it?
I think it's a big role of what my job really is to install and continue to breathe culture and values. Now, again, this is something, if I go back pre-2014, you'd have said culture and values. Now, coming from my father's, startup, it'd have been, what a load of old poppycock. But, today, and again, as you grow, it becomes more and more valuable to keep the business in the ethos and of the original leader, the founder, really. I think what happens is when you found a company and there's just you or a small team within a small room, the culture's there. You're all in it together. It's a startup. You know what you're doing. You know where you're going. And as you open another unit, and that's next door, suddenly there's communication, and they might put their own bits of value. Well, they should know that, and I think that's a term, isn't it, that comes up. Well, they should have known that as common sense. Well, it's not really, because that's your views. If you want that, you need to install it in values and culture and the things that you do. To keep the business the same, and what you want to build really is an enterprise that's not around you. And I think so many businesses, isn't it, are it's the individual, and it's breaking away from that. The company isn't me; it's an entity in its own right. That if I'm not here, that culture still remains and continues.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, they often say when you talk about someone's reputation, it's about what people say about them when you're not in the room. And I guess that's the same with the culture. It's how people live it day to day, even when you're not about.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if they carry on doing it, or if suddenly the boss is out, and actually it completely changes the way people interact with customers, the way the phones, then exactly. Actually that isn't culture. That's just, we're just doing our job.
Yes. And and if we look at now how we recruit, we recruit on attitude and values. Yeah. So it aligns with the people that are within here. So you join and you get it, and you're on the path with us. And I think in the past, different people have different values, and it's not that they are no good. They might be just driven in a different way and if I look at our culture, it's and some of the words that are on the wall: caring, responsible, and not one of them is highly driven. Now, highly driven is great, yeah. If you're in a culture that really accepts that, I guess really that family feel, it's safe, it's caring. And if that's what you want from work, yeah, it's not highly driven. And I don't say, you know, money is in our culture is of course we all need it.
Yeah.
But if you want to earn big sums, then you probably need something else. But if you join us, you're going to have a nice living. You're going to have a nice uh, after work life, the work life balance, and that's what it's built around. And that's, if that's what you want, then that's you're fitting great. And you want to achieve. We want to grow. We want to improve as individuals, as a company. And again, if that's what you want, you come and join us. So, if you don't want to be challenged, yeah, and then maybe this isn't right. And I think there's people that have been really good, very skilled, but may not have just fit in with those sort of ethos, and and then go off and find the success in somewhere that it suits them better.
Yeah, I guess that is that you've got to fit in with the team, and money isn't the only motivator. And in fact, money's quite often a short-term motivator.
It is, yeah.
So even when you get a pay rise, actually you just end up spending it and you haven't got any more money. So it's a short-term boost, but what actually gets you through every day is knowing you're coming to work somewhere where, one, you're valued, but two, you're doing good work and the end product is good. And what you're doing, selling beds as such, this is something people lay on for 8 hours every single day of their life.
Beds is just a commodity. You can buy a bed from anywhere. But I guess this is where we come from, is we are trying to improve your sleep. Yeah. Now, that means you won't find very low cost budget products in our stores because they won't improve your sleep. And that's quite difficult when you come from a sales background, to turn away business. Like, but I want to buy something that's this price. Yeah, I know, but it won't do what really our purpose is about, which is improve your sleep. And as a salesperson, I sometimes we struggle, but it's like, no, we need to stay true to the principle, for the long-term goal. When you have the budget, come and see us, because then we will have the product that will improve your sleep. But sometimes it conflicts, but you've got to stay true to that.
How have you seen some of the major changes in business during your periods here, from when first joining to now? I mean, just obviously the growth of the company, but you've been through some quite interesting financial times, sort of the financial crash, and then 2008 and even COVID time, and,
even more recent. It's I guess the biggest change and is the controls and the structure to the organization. And I suppose it started in 2014 with KPIs. Yeah. And of course, being an action coach, you'll know all about that. That's where it all starts from. And I think when you're starting businesses, these aren't really necessary. You're there, you're in it, you know what's going on. But as you get bigger, then you need to know what is happening. And it's not just the revenue number. In fact, the revenue number is just a result.
Yeah.
It's what's creating that revenue. Is it your average order value? How much is that? How, is it your conversion? Is it your footfall into store? And these are all metrics that run through every single business. And you could think, well, but you're retail, we don't have footfall. Yeah, but you might have email inquiries and you might have phone inquiries. So there's your leads, your footfall. And then how many of those are converting? Yeah. And then what is the average transaction value? And then there's another one. How frequently are you transacting? Now, once you're measuring those and you see those over months, quarters, years, you will see trends. And so you will know, okay, our revenue's dropped. Why? Our conversion's dropped. Okay, let's have strategies that will push up that conversion.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest change to our business. We're in control of what's going on right here, right now. Whereas it was sell stuff, buy stuff, sell stuff. How much? Yeah. How much we got in the bank? Okay. Okay. Well, that's gone down. And then you get your accounts. And, when we went through the painful periods, we were relying on accounts to manage your business. Well, accounts are fine, but they end at the end of your financial year.
Yeah, they're often out of date by the
Then
time
it's
you see them.
6 months before you've got them all finalized. Then you realize you're still doing the same bad shit that you should have changed 18 months ago.
Yeah.
So it's just that, and the bigger you get, the more, dangerous that gets. And I think that's one of the first curves, is to get that structure in.
Understanding some real-time data so you can make sensible decisions. I always joke that I remember, I was a couple of years into business and my accountant sent me some, sort of my tax return and all of that and they said, oh, you've made this much profit. And I was like, well, where is it? Because this was 8 months ago or whatever. Yes. And things had changed since then. It was, what I needed to do was look at, okay, what's happened over the last month?
Yeah.
And it was interesting, Sam, my background is marketing, but understanding, is it the conversion rate or is it leads? Or, because a lot of people go, oh, we need some more business, we need some more leads. And well, you're getting lots of leads, but you're only converting a small amount of them.
Exactly.
If we increase the conversion, we don't need to generate any more leads.
Exactly that.
And actually, if they're already there and almost ready to buy, that's the bit we should work on.
Absolutely. That's exactly where you should start probably the first thing you should start with is your gross profit.
Yeah.
Is push, do you need to charge a little bit more? But because these are things you're in control of. And then really it's the conversion and average order value. Again, you're in control to some degree of those things. Yeah. Whereas leads, that's where cost comes in, because you may need to buy those leads in advertising or marketing.
Yeah.
But if you get all those other bits aligned first, then you turn on your marketing, then that's where the big growth comes from. And that's what we saw really, I guess, really up until 2018. We were just working with what we had, just optimizing all these different levers. And then suddenly we turned on marketing on top of that. And that's where our revenues really rocketed. Yeah. But don't turn on the leads first, because you're just wasting too much. It's optimizing first, then turn on the leads.
Yeah, you're just turning on more taps, but you've still got loads of holes and the water's escaping. You know, you might as well plug those up first. You go into being the unorthodox CEO, you were posting, I think it was just weekly at one point, on LinkedIn. Yeah. And this was Paul that challenged you.
Hetherington.
Hetherington.
You've done a podcast. I listened to it last night, actually.
Okay, So he challenged you to sort of start doing this. And they got some good traction, didn't they? And do you think it was because you were very real?
Yeah.
Very truthful. It was very you. If I mean, when I meet you now, they are posts by you.
Yes. Yeah.
You can
I write them all. But yes, I guess so. Now, I guess there's no agenda to them. I'm not trying to tout for business. If anything, it's I know how tough it is working for yourself, being your own boss, business, the ups and downs and the troughs and the loneliness of that at points. And I guess it's really just to help others, to say, look, come on. And I think one of the biggest things you need as a business owner is resilience. You need to be able to get yourself up, dust yourself off. Come on in. Right. Let's start again. Come on in. Yes, let's start again. Because it is knock, 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 win, knock, knock, knock. There's far many more knocks than there are wins. And it's having that resilience to do that for 36 years. And there are points where you're just like, God, Christ's sake, wouldn't it be easier working for someone else? But I don't think I could anymore. But that's the tough bit. That's the tough bit. And I guess it's really just putting my experiences out there. And if it supports one person or it gives someone some ideas, when we're talking about these numbers, it's actually very simple when you think about it. And it was a light bulb moment for me to go, oh, and just if I can put a few more light bulb moments out there and make people's lives a little easier in business, it doesn't cure, but it can help, all those different things. And I guess that's where it comes from. Paul challenged me to do it every week. And unfortunately, when I accept a challenge, I tend to Okay, all right, and
I'm going to do that.
and I feel I think I've missed one or two in the last 2.5 years, and I feel dreadful. I feel so I've let someone down, and then it's moved on to podcast, and again it was Paul that pushed that one, and it's like okay, and so a very different audience listening to the podcast as it is reading the LinkedIn posts. And again, lots of really positive feedback from that. Again, no real agenda apart from just putting it out there, saying, look, guys, you can do this, and anyone can. I left school at 16. I was not academic by any sense, but I was passionate. I was driven. I am, but dyslexic as well, and I've never been diagnosed, but I do struggle to read, and but it doesn't stop you, if you have drive, passion, and vision, and and I'm hungry to be better, when I can, I do try and read, and LinkedIn I find is a fantastic resource. Ideas, thoughts. Times I just take a little snapshot, send it to Victoria, Paula, Josh, have a look at this.
Yeah.
And just little nuggets. And, we went to a work festival last week. You guys met at the
Podcast show. Yeah.
show. And I think it's putting yourself out there. And there's always something you'll come back with. If you don't go to these things, there's definitely no chance of anything coming back. And I think that's networking. Sometimes I think a lot of people go, oh, networking, yeah, I don't get nothing out of it. Well, are you speaking to anyone?
Yeah. It's relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sometimes these relationships can, they don't necessarily lead to work straight away, or even that might not even be the goal. No. It's just having that support, because you mentioned there that resilience of getting knocked down, then there's a win.
Yeah.
But actually, a lot of the time we see on social media, it feels like everyone's winning.
Yes.
And you're the only one getting the knocks.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's just not realistic.
It's not.
For the majority.
Yeah, but I think absolutely for the majority. And it always looks as though its grass is greener in all these other businesses. But actually the grass is exactly the same colour. They might have a few more noughts, but it can still that same nice knife edge that we're all riding on.
Yeah. I think people forget that. They always think as the business grows, actually it gets easier. But in fact, it's just different. It's just different figures.
Yes, different noughts.
Different noughts.
It might be more noughts on that end, but there's far more noughts on the other end. So, the costs are higher. They're dealing with more people, and the complexities of communication when you get a much bigger team. It is. It just changes. It's different, but the same challenges remain.
How do you switch off then when you go home? Because you were saying your wife's here, you have performance reviews with your wife. Yeah. And you said you were quite good at separating it, but how do you make sure, do you have to consciously make sure this is our time away from thing? Because otherwise, even Christmas Day, you must all be sat around the table and you're thinking about Boxing Day sales. Christmas
Day is probably one where we don't tend to talk much work. That's probably one that is quite clear because the shops are shut.
Yeah.
So
it's easier.
And we're enjoying the Christmas. But yes, we do. I suppose dinner tables can become little board meetings. Have a barbecue, and then it'll develop. It's interesting when I was younger, and it was me and my father. So we live in our house, and mum and dad have an annex.
Okay.
So we tend to have dinner together all as a family, and me and dad would then start talking business or different bits and pieces around the business, and the kids would go, oh, you're talking about work again. Anyway, so we'd stop and we'd go for a dog walk and then speak about it. Today it's now turned right round. It's them that are prompting the conversations, and me going, oh, I don't want to talk about this now. Let's leave that until we've got a meeting tomorrow. Let's deal with it there. So it is difficult. We tend not to. It's more of a. If we do have discussions, they're positive idea creative discussions
Yeah.
of we could do that. Yes, let's take that back, more than you said this, you said that. It's more of a creative discussion than not. I did actually. I have struggled over the last 18 months. We've gone through another real difficult period, and it's all prompted by change in all of our IT systems, and it's been just, if not more, challenging than the financial issues we had way back in 2012-14. And the knock-on effect of these ITs did cause some financial strain as well.
Yeah.
And so I've struggled over the last 18 months when going on holidays to switch off. Because again, today you're constantly connected to the business.
Yeah.
Whereas, you go back 20 years ago, it was paper. It was, and so you found out when you got back,
Yeah.
more or less. It was,
Yeah, you might phone up halfway through, but that was it. Now it's a text, an email, WhatsApp. Yeah. So you're constantly connected.
And if you look at our systems now, I can track, and this is the danger. I'm saying, you need controls, you need all these levers. The thing that happens now is I can look at it any minute of the day and see what our conversion is today, our average order value is today, right here, right now. And you end up then living in there. I'd be on holiday, and in fact, went away with Josh just only a few weeks ago. And I think it was our last day, and we both got it on our phones. And first thing in the morning, it's like, that's good. We've done some good business this morning. That's fantastic. Brilliant. Fantastic. Yeah. And so, wonder if we've done some more at lunchtime. You look at, it's exactly the same. Oh, that's disappointing, isn't it? And so and then we look at 2:00 and it's exactly the same. Oh, that's depressing. We started off so well today. God's sake. Oh, that's dreadful. And then at 4:00, I've done a little bit, but not much. And then we got to the airport as we're flying back. It's like, boom, loads of orders come in just after 5, and it's been a fantastic day. Now, I've gone on this roller coaster of emotions for absolutely no reason. And so I spoke to Paul about this. I said, I need to try and switch off. And he said, well, look at the end of the day. And so we make a pact. It's always very difficult when you're a family, because it only takes one of you to be looking, and then, why are they happy, sad?
Yeah,
so
it sneaks in.
We're going away in a few weeks. We got a family at home, and we're going away as a family, and we're making this pact that nobody is allowed to look at business until the shops are shut, and there's a 1 hour period where you can look at what's been done.
Yeah,
and that's it. Anyone caught looking earlier will have to do a forfeit. I guess that's quite unorthodox as well, isn't it?
But I like that. I like that little, because actually there's no real benefit to seeing it hour by hour.
No, not really. No, I can't do nothing about
there's
it.
There's not a lot you can do about, the conversion rate between 2 and 3 when you're on holiday.
Exactly.
It's just, let's just wait and see how the day plays out. But yeah, you almost, I guess by looking, you're giving yourself that, whether it's either a bit of anxiety or a nice adrenaline shot.
Exactly, yeah.
Which I know as humans we seek out.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your own personal social media feed.
It is, yeah.
You don't know if you're going to see good or bad.
No. And it could be that actually the figure that ends up at the end of the day, you would take at the beginning of the day. But because you'd done most of that before 2:00, you're thinking, it's going to be an even better day. Yeah. And you're disappointed that you only hit what you expected. So, the fun of being in business, you see?
Yeah. I mean, how do you then just make sure that you do stay fairly sort of sane?
One of the big escapes from me is a little bit of Amdram. I done a few local shows, and you then become a character. So you rehearse, obviously, and then you do the show. And they're fantastic for social interaction, but also escape for me. So, if I'm a pirate, I'm a pirate
Yeah.
for that evening and for a performance, and
Yeah.
I'm not Steve, the unorthodox CEO. And so your mind is being a pirate, or what else have I done? A wolf, a cross-dressing wolf, or whatever it is. You become that person, that character. And so I find Amdram really good for a just release. In fact, over the last 18 months, I did SpongeBob the musical last year, and then also produced locally Hastings Gang Show.
Yeah. Okay,
So
yeah.
I've been producing that again for far too many years, but and that's giving back. It's not so much me performing, it's more about putting this show together for 120 young people each year. Some of them have no stage experience at all. They go from 6 years old to 18, and and you see them grow from someone holding their mum's hand, and suddenly in 9 weeks, 12 weeks, they're performing in front of 2,000 people, singing, dancing, confidence, and see what that does to young people is incredible. And I think so. So that's a huge relief to me. In fact, actually, we done our last show in May. We're kicking off a meeting tonight for next year. So that's a long process. We do that virtually 12 months of the year. But that's a big stress relief for me. It takes me out of the norm, refreshes, and then you come back with a fresh head into the business world.
I love it. Steve, look, thanks for chatting to me today. I mean, what one thing haven't we spoken about that you think would be really beneficial for someone starting in business to hear, having had all the experience that you've had?
Someone starting in business. You don't need to know it all, and I think I've touched this. And you're probably starting business as a technician, a really good technician. You've been doing a job, and you think, I could do this on my own. Yeah. And you can, and you're probably fantastic at it. But business is far more than the technical job, role, whatever you create, make. And you need to. One of the biggest changes for us was a business coach who, and I can remember when we first started with a business coach, my father would have said, what is a coach going to tell me and teach me about beds and mattresses? And the answer is nothing. Absolutely nothing. You are the expert in the beds and the mattresses, and probably the sales, because that's what your skills are. But what they will bring in is what controls you need to grow that business, to put in place. What financial knowledge do you need? What marketing knowledge do you need? And these are all the extra bits that you need to know. And it's about really understanding that and going out and bringing in expertise when you need it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. Yeah, you don't know it all, and you don't need to know it all. Reach out when you need help. And we still do. We've just brought in a fractional CFO. We know our background is sales and customer service and products. It's not hard financial. We're not accountants, and having someone that knows that and can organize that for you, even for us, it's only a few hours a week. Pay for that expertise to come in, and it will pay for itself, and especially the coaching to begin with, to give you a broad overview.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing you mentioned the E-Myth as a book.
Yes.
And that touches on that topic,
exactly
doesn't it?
That, isn't it? Being the technician.
Being the technician.
Yes.
And yeah, running a business and being a technician are actually very different things.
Very different. Yeah, read the E-Myth.
Especially if you start to grow and then you've got people working for you, and you touched on that earlier, that you think, well, I do it like that. Why aren't you doing it like that? But actually allowing people to find sometimes their way with some controls in place so that it's done consistently, how the business is done, but allowing people as well to operate.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've loved our chat today. I really have. That's gone really well. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me.